I am Judge Larissa Corduba. I am the Justice of the Peace for Precinct 4. For those of you who don't realize, Precinct 4 goes all the way from Tomball, all the way to Kingwood, down through Atascocita, past the Beltway, so it's 1.2 million people. And we have 2 JPs, 2. It's amazing, right? I ran, and for all those wonderful candidates out there, when I ran, I had 7 people in my primary. It was an open seat. And many, many people in this room helped me get elected. I was very blessed to be the judge in Tomball for 6 years before I ran for Justice of the Peace. So I understand exactly where all of you are coming from. I know what it's like to be the candidate, and I thank you all. I haven't had an opponent the last couple times, and I appreciate that. But it's always great. I'm not on the ballot, but I want you to know that I'm here for you even when I'm not on the ballot, because I think that's important, keeping in touch with people and finding out what everybody's interested in. Justices of the Peace hear legal cases. Lots of them come from the Sheriff's Department. We hear tickets. Everybody always says, you're the ticket judge. Yes, I hear tickets, but I hear truancy, I hear drug possessions, I see small claims cases on the civil side. So I have a lot of personal knowledge, and some of my questions, those of you who've been to lots of forums, right? We've been to lots of forums in the last couple weeks. I've got some hard questions for these guys, because I'm coming at it from a judge's perspective and from a perspective of what people call to ask me about. Anybody who's ran for office, and all of you, your neighborhood, your mom's groups, your dad's groups, your buddies in baseball, they ask you because you are in politics. They want to know, who are you voting for? What should I do about this proposition? What's going on with this situation, right? Catalytic converters or ChemOg or whatever. They ask you because you're leaders in your community and in your areas. So I formulated some of these questions based on what people call me and ask me about. So I'm going to invite all of our candidates up here. I'm not sure if I saw all 4 or at least 3. Okay, so perfect. I'm going to invite everybody up. I'm going to tell you how the forum's going to, yep, you guys can all have a seat. We're going to do an opening statement of 2 minutes. I'm going to ask questions. Each question will be answered in 2-minute intervals. So I'm going to ask everybody to come over. Can we get, everybody's going to be up there? All right. So in your 2-minute introduction, you will have to introduce yourself, tell us what you're running for, which we know already. And you're going to have to keep it to 2 minutes because we have a wonderful scorekeeper. 1 minute? Done. So, nobody yet, but that way you have it just in case you need it. I'm going to ask my question, then I'm going to sit down to be out of the way for everybody. If you can't hear me, can everybody hear me in the back? Anyway, great. All right, first question, one of my favorite topics to talk about is ChemOg. How many people here in law enforcement know how huge of a problem the district attorney is? For those of you who don't know, let me give you the short version. There is not one case that can be filed in any part of Harris County without the district attorney accepting charges. That means somebody at the district attorney's office answers the phone and says, tell me what you got. They list all the things that they have, and then they say, okay, I'll take charges, or I won't take charges, I'll take this, I'll take that. I skipped into my first question, so I'm going to give you guys the intro time as well as the question. But ChemOg, being ChemOg, has decided that Class C misdemeanors, any kind of misdemeanors of any kind, aren't important. Let's not forget her drug. We're not going to take drug charges under 5 ounces. She's made all kinds of sweeping statements. She has decided which laws she wants to follow, which ones she doesn't want to follow. And when you have a district attorney like that, it is extremely challenging to the police officers, the guys on the ground, the deputies that are there every single day. I am brokenhearted when they call me so frustrated to say, I chased this guy through the woods, I almost broke my leg, I ran across the highway, I got him, he broke into 4 houses. They took 1 charge for 1 thing. He goes, what do I say to the families in the other houses that they won't take the charges on? Right? What did you do in the school shootings, or not at school area shootings where they won't take the assault charge when somebody assaults a teacher or something else? So a lot of these cops come to me with these frustrations, and as a sheriff, it's very important that they have some answers for us. So my first question, after your 2-minute introduction, is going to be, if you are elected as our sheriff for Harris County, how are you going to handle ChemOg and the difficulties that all of us face with her not accepting charges? So first your 2-minute intro, and we'll start on this end and work this way for the first question and work our way back. So we'll start with Mike Knox. You've got a 2-minute introduction, and then I'll ask you to answer the question, which will also be 2 minutes. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me okay? All right, very good. My name is Mike Knox, and I am running for Harris County Sheriff. I want to bring public safety back to being our #1 priority in Harris County. I'm going to give you a little brief history of me. I was born and raised here in Houston, Texas. Went to Westbury High School. I went to the military, to the Air Force for 4 years. I came back, joined the Houston Police Department, spent 15 and a half years there. While there, I started the very first gang unit. That expanded into the West Side Gang Task Force and ultimately became the Texas Gang Investigators Association. When I see problems, I like to deal with them. I wrote a book and went on the speaking circuit, spent 22 years as a business person, as a consultant on gang and youth violence, traveling all over the United States and Canada, consulting with law enforcement and school districts about violent thugs and gangster kids. So I did that for 22 years. Then I stayed home a little bit. My wife finally challenged me to put up or shut up. She was tired of hearing me complain about government. I ran for office, run 2 terms as a Houston City Council member, and I am now standing before you ready to take my experience forward into the county and do some good for the people of Harris County. I am Mike Knox. I'm running for Harris County Sheriff. Appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Now you get to answer the question.
Oh, the question was, what am I going to do about Kim Ogg? Well, we may not have to worry about Kim Ogg. I think she's getting primaried out. We're going to have a bigger problem, and that's John Tier. And so in any event, listen, a long time ago, I met with a guy named Johnny Holmes, and he explained what a DA's job is, to enforce the law. You're not supposed to have an opinion about it one way or the other. And I think the sheriff should be the same way. So we're going to stop the DEI stuff, and we're going to start doing what I call CCG. Character, the content of your character and your qualifications. We're going to start there. And then if I have to, and I will, we need to hold the DA accountable as we do the judges and the commissioner's court in the court of public opinion, which means a great deal of time before a camera, talking to the public and educating them about what's really going on in that DA's office. I think that's going to be the most effective way to change their minds or to force their hand, and we'll see how that goes. Thank you very much.
So yeah, once again, I'm Glenn Cowan, running for Harris County Sheriff, and like I said before, I'd already given my intro, but being a current supervisor on the street, I'm dealing with what we're talking about every day with the DA, right? Just to backtrack a little bit, I worked in our command center handling critical incidents and casualties and things of that nature, and I've also done it on the street. I was George Floyd riots, the very first night, apocalyptic scene. I'll never forget it. I've also worked in Hurricane Harvey, and I've been through extensive training. And as if y'all just saw with Lakewood, this last shooting we had, in case you don't know, in TCOL training, mandated training that we now have, we call that active shooter scenario. You saw all of the agencies come together and cooperate. Well, that's part of that model. Whenever there's an active shooter, all local agencies come running. And that's part of that training. It's very integral for your next sheriff to have. Now, in regards to the DA's office, I deal with this on a daily basis as a supervisor right now on the street. I recently made an arrest where I caught a burglary in progress. I had the suspect in the back seat. I had to wait 45 minutes for charges. We need to hold the DAs accountable. John Tier is way worse than you ever can imagine Kim Ogg being. I'm just going to let y'all know right now. It's way bad. So we're going to hold them accountable, just like we're going to hold the judges and the district courts accountable. We can do that according to the Texas Constitution. I will need everyone's help. We will get charter buses and go to Austin and do it in person if necessary. But we will band together and we will make a change in the DA's office. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Joe Dana. I'm running for Harris County Sheriff again. I ran 4 years ago in 2020 and came in a very close second place, in my opinion. We received nearly 700,000 votes, and I hope that carries us on to through the primary into November for the general election. The Harris County Sheriff's Office, the employees, the 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, however many is there today, it seems to drop every day. They are victims of political correctness, and that's one of the biggest problems with the Sheriff's Department's morale. political correctness. We're going to replace that with zero tolerance. We're going to formulate rules. We're going to come up with an organizational chart, which I've already have. We have an effective organizational chart that will work. It will work, and we will have zero tolerance with that. We're not going to come up with rules and regulations like they have now. The deputies are scared to death to do their work, do their job, to get out of a car, to traffic stop for a lot of reasons, but a lot of it is their own rules and regulations. We're going to change that. We're going to use common sense when we come up with our rules, our policy, our organizational chart. It's going to be organized. As far as the DA is concerned, I have a great idea for her or him, depending on who wins. We'd have a Republican candidate. What they need to do, in my opinion, strongly, is the same thing that Fort Bend and Montgomery County does. We shouldn't have to get their permission to file charges. They can beat the rat, but they can't beat the ride. That's my opinion. Can people hear me? I don't know if this is... Hello. It's working. Okay, I'm sorry. We don't need to call them, one of these ADAs, and say, hey, this is the situation. We articulated this, that, and the other. And they're looking through the penal code. You know what? That doesn't really apply to this. No, I don't think we're going to take that charge. So what a lot of guys do, and girls, they call back to get another one. And then if they refuse them, they want to know their name, and they get a refusal for the report. This is a big circus. It's all about politics, in my opinion, about them accepting charges before, for us calling them to accept charge before. We shouldn't have to do that. Look at Montgomery County. Look at the crime up there compared to Harris County. The criminals are sitting on the border there. They're saying, hey, wait a minute. If we're going to steal a car, let's don't do it Montgomery County. Let's go to Harris County. We got no bonds. They're going to have to call. They probably won't take charges. It's a mess. It's worse than a mess, and it's not acceptable. You vote for Joe Downer. If we get through the primary and head to November, I'll take care of every bit of that. I promise you. Thank you. Joe Downer for sheriff.
My name is Deborah Nolan. I'm here on behalf of Paul Day because he's on Real Talk 100 radio and podcast tonight and couldn't be here. As far as the first half of this, Paul's background, he's got 45 plus years in law enforcement. He's retired after 30 years with HPD. That wasn't enough. 8 months later, he goes and does his agility test and hires on with the sheriff's department. Spent another almost 12 years until he retired, which was 3 years ago that he retired. He was actually my partner for some of that time at the sheriff's department. I'm a 25-year veteran. I was severely injured in the line of duty. And ironically, Sean Tier is the one that decided to give the man who was looking at a 99-year sentence 5 years probation.
Yep. That's crazy.
Yep. And for those of you who don't know me, this is my first 3 weeks off of my cane since my injury, my neck fusion, and everything else. And the man that did this to me got to walk away because of Sean Tier. Don't get me wrong, I'm no Kim Ogg fan, but Sean Tier, 10 times worse. 10 times worse.
Can you tell us his name?
The defendant?
Yeah.
Well, he's deceased now, but his name was Blake Henry. He got out 3 months after he got out on his felony assault of probation. He assaulted 2 of my partners in a stolen car and was let out on a PR bond the next morning, and 2 days later was found shot in the head 3 doors down from his drug dealer. Karma. That's what I call it anyhow. As far as the question goes, we're not, anybody that's tried to talk to a politician or get with them on, let's do this and let's compromise. You can't compromise. It's like trying to deal with a terrorist. It doesn't work. So you have to find inventive ways. We found inventive ways. There was a little known thing, which they all know, when we're filing charges, it says initiate federal prosecution. Now we're all taught just put no in there and go on. Well, I thought to myself, Kim Ogg won't take charges? Guess what? I'm going to put a Y. He's got a gun, he's got drugs, and he's a 3-strike offender. All of those fall under RICO statute, which are federal rules. Giuliani cleaned up New York City with it. We can clean up Harris County with it. We've talked to our counterparts at the feds. They've got no problem taking any of these charges. So Kim Ogg's DAs, that DA intake is what it's called, says, I'm sorry, we're not accepting the charge. Guess what? The feds will. At least we have a place to put them. I personally think that Kim Ogg and Commissioners Courts are in cahoots on not taking these charges because they want to keep the jail level down. How many inmates are in the jail? That's not security for us, not at all. That's giving them a free ticket. And for the record, we had over 600 murders in Harris County total last year. Not the 200 that you see on the news. That's for HPD, for the city of Houston only. Thank you, and please vote Paul Day.
I told you these are going to be good questions. These are great answers. Aren't they doing a good job? All right, next. Many of you know how difficult, and for those that are going down to Commissioner's Court, thank you. People don't realize that in Harris County, every single judge, every sheriff, constable has to deal with Commissioner's Court in terms of their budget. And if they don't get you one way, they're going to get you another way. So I might be one of the only Republicans left standing, but guess who controls my budget? The Commissioner's Court. So I would like to ask the candidates my next question, which is, with the 4-1 majority, the Democrats to the Republicans in the Commissioner's Court, and all these great incentives, I've heard all of you speak, you're great speakers, and you're doing an excellent job. You have lots of great programs, but those programs require money. What is your plan on how to deal with Commissioner's Court in terms of the budget for your department and how you will implement getting them to come on board with some of the incentives that you want to bring forth? We'll go ahead and start on this end, and you have 2 minutes to answer.
First off, the sheriff needs to go in, needs to pull his budget. The budget for 2024, which we won't have any part of, is $1.86 billion. Okay? Out of the section of that, I think the sheriff's department gets 12% of that budget. The problem is, Commissioner's Court, Lena Hidalgo and Ellis, and our former illustrious crappy Sheriff Garcia, hired somebody to the tune of $350,000 a year to do nothing but make sure the sheriff is doing his job. That position needs to go away. There are 14 of these positions that total up over $4 million a year in salaries that belong to the Harris County Sheriff's Office. That money alone could pay for a lot of the overtime. And just so y'all know, the current overtime budget is $8 to $10 million a month. Just in the jail. That doesn't even include the patrol deputies. So what we're going to do is, number one, use the federal funding that's out there. Yes, we have to open the books to the feds, but who cares if you're not doing anything wrong? What are you worried about? We're talking about over $1 billion in federal funding for our department that puts out the deputies on the streets to, after they get off their regular duties and their calls for service, that could come out and work that overtime in your neighborhoods, in the neighborhoods that are creeping up 1960 on this side of town, because it's going to get worse. And giving the Metro Commissioner a $500,000 salary, in case y'all didn't see that last week that they voted on, is not helping anybody. $500,000, that is his new take-home salary. $500,000 a year. Please sign me up for that.
Judge, I'm going to handle the Commissioner's Court, the four rather. I don't think we'll have a problem, Mr. Ramsey. The way we're going to handle them is the same way I'd handle any elected politician that has a budget, and I believe most of them do. I'm going to approach them with a plan, an effective plan that will save the commissioners, the Harris County taxpayers, 15 to 18, maybe 20%. These are figures back in 2020 where I massaged the figures, the budget, and for a year and a half I created an organizational plan, an effective organizational plan. I'm going to visit with them about, in black and white, how we can save them this much money. So I'll get their attention real quick, but I'm going to get them one at a time. I'm not going to get all three or all four of them now in one meeting. I want to visit with them one at a time, say, look, guys and girls, this is what we have. We can save the taxpayers this much money, 10, 15, 18%, and this is what we're going to do with that money. We are going to increase the reserve, and I've been saying this for 3 years. The reserves for the Sheriff's Department used to be, reserves are volunteers. They do not get paid. They're peace officers. They don't get paid, okay? They do it from the bottom of their heart. They have to. But what we're going to do, they used to have 700 to 800 reserves. And they did all kinds of facets. They educated kids, they educated teachers, tons of stuff they can do. The hot team, the homeless team, he's got full-time deputies, probably 3 or 4, out there with the homeless team. It's ridiculous. They need to do that, but they need to do it with reserves. Zero cost to the county. So we're going to get that total, and right now it's about 150. We're going to get that buck up to 700 or 800. I can put on 200 the first 90 days. Unpaid reserves for the Harris County Sheriff's Office. That's where we're going to. That's one way we're going to show them how we're going to cut the budget. Thank you so much.
I hate going behind Debbie because she takes all my stuff. Shame on you. You're, yeah. So like Debbie said, there is quite a big budget for the Sheriff's Department already. But look, here, Ed Gonzalez did get more funding last September. He's going to bring this up in the November general election. My problem is where's all the money going? Because we still don't have more corrections. We don't have any more jailers. We don't have any more deputies. We've got about 2,000 deputies. They report that it's actually less than that, trying to service an area of 2 million people in unincorporated Harris County. Now, our projected growth rate is going to hit over 6 million people in the next 17 years. We're already way below staffing. We need my personal estimate is about 20% more than what we've got right now. But without the deputies on the street, without the corrections, the officers in the jail, we're looking at catastrophic future for the Sheriff's Department. So where we get additional money is, first of all, we cut out the DEI and the CRT nonsense. I'm sure you would all be surprised to think that there's not any waste going on in terms of social programs or bureaus or anything like that, right? A certain department that I won't mention that I may or may not work with has their own museum. You got a full-time police officer who is the museum director, and that's their job. That's a waste of resources. We don't need that. They need to be out on the street doing their job as peace officers. With our fleet right now, SO doesn't have a fleet. I got deputies telling me they don't have any cars. Aldine ISD police chief said in a meeting that I attended, and you'll think this is crazy, but this is what they're doing. He said they went to a lease program where he said he could get about 13 or a dozen or more cars for the cost of 3, which to me is genius. You put the equipment on them, wear them out, and then you can offload them. You don't have to sell them at an auction. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're in a war right now between the conservative thought and the liberal thought. Our current commissioner's court, many of our judges and our DA suffer from hug-a-thug disease. All right? So in order to do that, we're going to have to confront and be confrontational if necessary. Not necessary, we are going to have to be confrontational. Our current sheriff submits a budget for approval for the commissioner's court, and they decide to reduce it a little bit or maybe give him a little bit less than what he asked for, and he stands there and says, "Thank you very much." That's not going to happen with me. I'm going to stand up there and argue with them and fight with them and make sure that they understand that their constitutional duty under the Texas Constitution, every government in Texas has this responsibility, and that is to care for the safety of the people who live there. And I'm telling you that our budget needs to be as big as it needs to be to get that job done. And if Rodney Ellis has to abandon one of his little bicycle programs, so be it. And I'm going to hold their feet to the fire on this. And there's nothing that disturbs a politician more than bad press or people talking about them, especially in the public. You can count on me for that, and we'll get some more money in there, and of course we'll do with the federal government and all that other things that we need to do. But the main thing that we need to focus on is doing battle with these liberals at the commissioner's court and forcing their hands and making them do what their constitutional duty requires. And that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
You keep that. All right. One of the topics of crime that we don't hear about very often anymore is auto thefts. Believe it or not, it's one of the highest increase in all of the criminal offenses coming through. And of course, the auto theft comes with catalytic converters. Who here's had a catalytic converter stolen or knows someone who has? See, there you go. It's a realistic problem, and those are those calls that I get in the middle of the night. Someone just stole something from my car. What do? I'm like, well, I'm the JP. I can't help you right this second, but let's call 911. The sheriff's department doesn't think that is that big of a problem at the moment, right? Because they're having to deal with Kimog and all these other things they're dealing with. But if you were to become sheriff, auto theft is effective every single neighborhood, whether you're a rich neighborhood, a not rich neighborhood. Auto theft is prevalent. What would you do to handle the catalytic converters and the auto thefts that are happening and the rise to combat that? How long? 2 minutes. Start with Mr. With Mr. Dana.
The sheriff's department actually lost one of their deputies on a catalytic converter.
Yep.
I think he was off duty trying to stop some thugs stealing one. Lost his life.
Yep.
Horrible. A lot of work needs to be done but Judge, actually, it's on the list, auto thefts. I think the city has this, I don't know about the county, but the city has 300 auto thefts every day. Every day, 250 to 300. I'm sure the county's probably more than that. I don't know that. But it's on the list, but it's not at the top of the list. Human trafficking is on the top of my list. Drugs are on the top of my list, gangs. But what we're going to do, we have, the sheriff's department has an auto theft division. Believe it or not, and I know the folks over it, they do nothing. Zero. Nothing. It's just like you said. They're not worried about stolen cars. They've got all these positions over there that are do-nothing positions. And most of them are friends or relatives of the sheriff, so he gets away with it. So the auto theft definitely needs to be increased, but it's just, I hate to say it, it's just not a high priority, okay, as far as Joe Dana is concerned. But we're going to make the deputies and the lieutenants and the captains over auto theft, we're going to make them work. They have to work. They're going to be accountable to the sheriff and their supervisor. That's it.
So Harris County is a transnational organized hub of the United States in terms of human trafficking, vehicle theft, narcotics, the whole 9 yards. Major port city, good location, it's ripe for crime, right? It's been this way for decades. So it's really easy to get this under control. You get your task force going, like with the Gulf Coast Task Force. It's made up of local officers and federal officers. We get those together. We get them. We put out the bait cars, and we usually can put a string on these cars and find out who the cells are that are operating. The only problem is that if we're not doing it through the task force, if we're doing it locally, like with the department, within the departments, like SO or just HPD, the DA's not taking charges on those because that's not violent crime to them. So if you have a single mom with 4 or 5 kids, like the one I stopped when I was a younger officer, and someone steals her catalytic converter, breaks into her car, how's she supposed to buy groceries? But our county DA is so worried about the thugs that are doing all of this crime, they're not painting the picture, the realistic picture of what it's doing to, like, you and friends of yours have had your catalytic converter stolen. So we'll work with the Gulf Coast Task Force. We'll get the feds involved so we can enforce the RICO statutes to get these people shipped back to where they need to be if they're illegal or if they need to go to federal penitentiary like Leavenworth or something like that. But we can get it under control. It's real easy to do. You just got to be willing to do it regardless of what the political naysayers say.
Yes, obviously we need to enforce the law, and that's what I'm going to do. Enforce all the laws, not just the ones that we want to, but the ones we have to. The ones that are written down in the Texas Penal Code, for example. Go figure that. I mean, why not follow the laws that are already written? We're going to do that. Yeah, we need to motivate these investigators. We need to motivate these other investigators going around working on all this stuff. But what we really need to do is get the money and the resources that we need to hire the people that need to do the work. My job is going to be to enforce the law. We're going to run these people down. We're going to arrest them. We're going to put them in jail, do what we can to do and get rid of them. The problem is that everybody's overworked and understaffed, and everybody understands that, and we know that. Nothing we can do about that initially, but we can build morale. We can motivate our deputies and our jailers, and create a better environment, make them want to work harder, longer. And you make an impact by putting bad guys in jail. Look, the Commissioner's Court came up with $62 million to fight crime like auto theft with lighting and landscaping. That doesn't work. Boots on the ground work. We're going to put some people on the ground. We're going to catch these guys. And we're going to do like these guys said, put them in federal prison. Do whatever we have to do to get them here. Deport them if we can. We've got a great new law for that. Anyway, so it's going to be fun. It's going to be difficult, be challenging, but it's going to be fun, and we can get it done. And you'll enjoy being able to park your car without worrying about parts missing in the morning.
Thank you. Very good. All right. Our last. I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. Got all excited.
I agree with everything they said, but my take's a little bit different since we're the only ones that actually work for the Sheriff's Department and knows what's going on over there. My take on that is it's got to do with, like he said, with restructuring. Currently, we have an auto theft division at the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Now, at one point in time, like I said, I've been there since Tommy Thomas was in office, so I've seen it all. We have gone from having 25 full-time auto theft detectives, investigators as they call them now over there, to where we only have 6, and that's including the sergeant. But in contrast, we now have AID, which is Internal Affairs, and OIG, Inspector General's Office. If you add the number of deputies, certified police officer deputies, in those two divisions, it's 148. My point is we need to get rid of OIG, combine it into IAD, take all of those over sitting on their butts doing nothing, and put them in auto theft, put them in human trafficking. Do y'all know how many people are in human trafficking division for Harris County Sheriff's Office, the third largest sheriff's department in the United States? 2. There are 2 deputies assigned to human trafficking. No, I'm not. You can verify anything I say to you. And when you have that many people, we're pushing 200 people to investigate complaints. A friend of mine who's been under investigation is leaving the department to go to DPS, just like most of them are. Oh, and by the way, so all of you are aware, between today and December the 1st, 2,440 Harris County Sheriff's employees are eligible for retirement. They will not work for the people that are in office anymore. There needs to be a new election. And I'm not saying, yes, they're supporting Paul. I'm not saying he's the only person that's going to do it. But let's face it, he's the only one that knows, the Sheriff's Department knows what goes on in there. He spent almost 12 years watching what went on. And it's nothing against anybody up here, but bringing somebody else in, we've done that. Garcia came in from HPD. Gonzalez came in from HPD. Everybody in the command staff, except for 2 majors, which we've got way too many of those, they're from HPD. It doesn't work. You have to know how the Sheriff's Department works in order to fix it. Thank you.
Sorry about that. All right. This is my last question, and then I'm going to give everybody a closing of 2 minutes. Border crossings are at an all-time high. Now, many of you might not know this. I know these guys up here know this, and ladies, that the Harris County Sheriff's Department stopped reporting ICE to ICE before the time of Adrian Garcia. So it's been a very long time, which means back in the day, they'd stop somebody. If they were here illegally, they would have to call it in to ICE, right? Notify them we have somebody who's here illegally, and steps would be taken. That doesn't happen now, right? We can't call them illegal aliens. We can't, what do we have to call them now? I don't even know what they call them now, but it's some, undocumented something or others. Migrants, yes, there you go. So if you are elected as our next Harris County Sheriff, what do you plan to do with the illegal aliens that you catch on the street? And I'm going to start with 2 minutes, please.
I will escort them back to where they came from. Yeah. We're gonna have to beef up our deputies. Y'all know that. We're gonna need help. We're gonna need a lot of help. But yeah, we will fully cooperate with the governor, with the state. Once we get staffed enough, I'd love to send deputies down to the border. Of course, Harris County's not represented down there. I know you're shocked, but So yeah, we're going to do the 287G program, which is, as you know, that if we work with the feds, we can help deport the criminals that come into our custody. And let me give y'all a little tool to use. And whenever y'all hear people talk about the 287, if you type up 287G on Google, which is, all the conservatives' best friend, whenever you type that up, it talks about how it's, a MAGA tool and a conservative. You know what president started that, right? It was Clinton. That was a Bill Clinton thing. So make sure to remind your liberal friends of that. Going into my closing statements, look, Debbie says that no one else here has sheriff's experience. I did work with the Kerr County Sheriff's Department in the Hill Country as a jail supervisor. No one gets to just dismiss that. I did work I know the structure. We work 12-hour shifts. So I know the structure of a sheriff's department and the political wranglings and everything that go with it. But I also recognize leadership and leading the men and women of law enforcement. And if you've never been a police supervisor, then you've really never experienced that level of leadership. Managing type A personalities, it's different. If any of you have been in the military, I think you know what I'm talking about, right? I'm the only candidate with police supervisory and jail supervisory experience. I will bring that to the Harris County Sheriff's Department. And yes, I'm with HPD, but I've got a good, strong history of strong history of productivity. I was well known at Northeast, which we called the Rock in Northeast Division. I was always known as a hardworking officer. I was at the top of my productivity for that division. It's a large division. I'm going to bring that kind of work ethic to the Sheriff's Department, and I'm going to bring the leadership skills and the morale. I'm going to get behind the deputies, and I'm going to let them know that they've got a friend. I've got their back. We're going to shrink that IED department and get a little bit of those guys back out on the street. And like, Debbie was saying, the OIG, that's just what the liberals are doing now. It started in 2016 when Michael Brown was shot. That's when I saw all of this start to happen. And so I want you to know that we're going to bring the morale back. We're going to let the deputies know that they come first. We're going to shrink that IED. We're going to get behind and build morale. We'll get people to recruit into the department, and we'll make Harris County the greatest sheriff's department in the nation. I'm Glenn Cowan. Thank you for your vote.
So my answer on the illegal alien, and I will use the term illegal alien, problem in the jail is simply the 287G program. I want to do that for two reasons. The federal government will teach our jailers how to conduct citizenship investigations like ICE does them. So in order to do that, we're going to be able to find out how many illegal aliens are in our jail and how much money we're spending on them. And I'm going to send a bill to the federal government every year to get money back. I know I'm not going to get it, but I'm going to make a show of it, all right? Secondarily, it's going to be difficult for the federal government when I began to enforce the new Texas law that allows sheriff's deputies to export people back to the countries they came from. It's going to be hard for them to argue the fact when I'm doing the same kind of inspection or investigation that they're doing. We're just going to save you federal guys a little money. We're going to start sending them back home to where they belong. So that's how we're going to deal with the illegal alien problem in our jail. For my closing, let me just remind everybody, we are Republicans. It is our responsibility to put Republican candidates into office. All of us are qualified to be sheriff, but only one of us has the political experience. I've been a member of the Republican Party for years, served 3 terms as a precinct chair, served as an election judge, an alternate judge. I have served on the local government committee of the Harris County Republican Party. I've supported candidates right and left. Throughout my tenure here, my life here in Houston, I've put in the hard work necessary. I understand our platform. I know what we're after here. We're after the ability to have reason and logic in our government. That's what I'm fighting for. Now, I've done all of that. I also have some business experience, which is outside of law enforcement, and I've managed a few people doing that as well. I have legislative experience as a city council. I won 2 races in a city of Houston, completely blue city, twice as an outspoken conservative Republican. I could beat Ed Gonzalez and the Democratic Party in Harris County if you guys will get behind me and support that. And thirdly, I've got the temperament necessary to stand up and do the battle that we need to do. We need warriors down here. We need somebody who can stand up and go toe-to-toe with Lena Hidalgo, Leslie Briones, Rodney Ellis, and Adrian Garcia. I'm that guy, and I can do it for you. I appreciate your vote and your support. I'm Mike Knox, and I'm running for you to be your next Harris County Sheriff. Thank you.
I was with the Sheriff's Department under Tommy Thomas when 287G program started, and not to correct you, but the 287G program actually ran when Garcia was in office, only because he couldn't get rid of it. It wasn't until Commissioner's Court became completely Democratic that the 287G program contract wasn't renewed. Now, with all due respect to my colleagues, there's only one way to get the 287G immigration program back in the Harris County Jail, and that is for it to pass by a majority through Commissioner's Court. I direct back to what I said before about trying to negotiate with Commissioner's Court. Not going to happen. So, my suggestion to Paul, since he wasn't there at the time, was to go back to what we did prior to the 287G contract. Doesn't require a contract, doesn't require anything, but to pick up the phone and call the counterpart over at ICE, which we've done before, bring 2 ICE agents in every single shift with a laptop MDS computer sitting next to their ICE computer, and do the same program all the way through. We're not going to get paid the money that we were getting at 287G, which was millions of dollars every year back to the county, but we will still be protecting the citizen by getting the ones that are convicted felons, previously deported felons, back out of here and sent back one-way ticket straight back to the countries. We don't need criminals. We have enough of our homegrown ones. We definitely don't need ones from every other country coming in. And everybody, like they said, you see what's going on down in the border. I've gotten to the point I can't even watch it anymore. It's so upsetting. As far as the finishing up on this, Paul Day is more than qualified. No, he wasn't a supervisor. He decided, and I don't want to insult anybody, he decided that he wanted to be on the grounds. I spent 25 years. As a female, please, I could have gone anywhere I wanted in the department. I stayed on the grounds. I'm a federally certified gang officer, not locally, federally certified. I spent my time working Ellen Barron Springs, Cypress Station, Kirkendall. I have worked human trafficking cases. I have personally rescued 6 females my last 5 years that I was on the streets. I have worked every part except for auto theft and IAD, thank God. But I've worked just about every part of the Sheriff's Department. I know everybody in there. I get along with the majority of the people in there, and I know what they want in a sheriff. I know that they support Paul. It has nothing to do, I was not insulting them being from HPD. Paul spent 30 years there. It's about knowing the Sheriff's Department. Yeah, there are a lot of people that have worked different places before, but we're talking about the 3rd largest Sheriff's Department in the United States. You have to know what the inner workings are. And above that, in case y'all don't know, the #1 line in the Texas Constitution about the sheriffs, that his #1 responsibility is to the jail. If you don't know how to fix what's going on in the jail, the state will come in and take over. Whether you like it or not, that's what's going to happen. And as of right now, because of the failed jail inspections, as of yesterday, we are on number 5, annual jail inspection. We're going to fail. They're going to fail again. I keep saying we because I'm part of the Sheriff's Department in that sense, but they're going to fail again. And when they do, as of November, every month they fail, 150 beds, inmate beds, are gone. We lose them. That means we don't have a place to put the inmates. 150 a month. Next week we lose another 150 because they're taking away. We don't have enough employees in there to take it, and the sheriff refuses to ask for K-time, which is overtime, for the deputies to come in and take over so that we don't lose any more. We currently have 8,141 inmates as of 6 a.m. in the jail. And if we continue to lose 150 every time, that's going to be bad.
As most of you know now, the 287G program is a federal program. And it's a mess. It's a mess. So is ICE. and so is the whole thing. Human trafficking, they could care less. But ICE, 287G, we need to bring back, but we first have to, ICE has not had a director in 7 years. They tried to nominate one. President Biden nominated our sheriff, Ed Gonzalez, and after a year and a half of investigating him, it didn't work out for him. All these Republicans up there called me, Mr. Dana, how about this Ed Gonzalez? What can you tell me about him? Well, I told every one of them, he's your guy. Take him. He's yours. Go. Take him. And the reason I want him to go is because if he would have left less than 50% of his term, which he would have if he would have got the job, there would have been a special election in 23, and the commissioners were going to have to appoint an interim sheriff. And at that time, there were 2 Republicans on there, and they both told me, go get one of those Democratic votes, and you're going to be the next sheriff. So I was pulling for Ed to go to Washington, but it didn't work out. The plans didn't work out, and certainly, and the three Democrats at that time, they all interviewed me. And after they interviewed me, there's no way they want Joe Dana as the next sheriff. I can promise you that. I've got mutual friends with Rodney Ellis, and a good friend of mine, a good friend of his, he said, Commissioner, you need to appoint Joe Dana as the next sheriff. He said, I don't know Joe Dana. And he said, well, I do, and you need to appoint him. That didn't go very well with Rodney Ellis. He found out what I'm all about. So working with the feds is going to be a real challenge until we first get a director. Okay, we have to get a director. We're not going to get a director until President Trump wins in November and gets sworn in on January 1st. Then we'll get a director, and he'll get all this stuff straightened out, in my opinion. As far as the closing goes, I did run in 2020, and we nearly beat him. But really and truly, it wasn't the support or lack of support of Joe Dana while we won second place instead of first. It was the election. It was the election fraud, and that's just not my opinion. The drive-through voting is what put us from first place to second. He received 130,000 votes from drive-through voting, and there were 10 locations. 8 of the 10 were in very highly Democratic areas. 130,000 votes, 8 of the 10. You take away 60, 80, 90,000 of votes from Ed Gonzalez, and I'd be your sheriff tonight. Unbelievable. So I have all the faith in the world that Cindy Siegel is going to take care of November and also the primary, but I don't think you have to worry about the primary. I feel like she's going to take care of the election. She tells me, and other folks have told me, the 22 election ran very smooth. There may be some hiccups, I don't know, but it ran very smooth. But the 2020 election, with the drive-through voting, is what cost Joe Dana first place to second place. So my name is Joe Dana. I'm looking to run for sheriff. And the Republican Party they've got the primary under control. Any of these 4 candidates would be a great job to beat Ed Gonzalez, which he'll probably be the candidate for the Democrat Party in November. Any of us can beat this guy, but I really feel like I have a real good chance of beating him because I would have beat him in 2020 as long as Cindy gets these elections legal and fair. Okay? Joe Dana, Harris County Sheriff. Thank you.
All right, please join me by giving every one of these candidates a great round of applause. It's hard to run. We thank each and every one of them for stepping out there. I personally thank you all, and thank you for letting me host your Sheriff's Forum tonight. Thanks so much.